Check, check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, Trev, can you hear me?
What's going on, brother? Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Good.
You know, spontaneous. So, who
Let me try to
knows?
get, yeah, let me try to get my video going here really quick. I am
Yeah,
not.
yeah, good. Who knows who's going to actually show up? Because I mean, this was last minute, but that's all right. If they don't come in live, they'll certainly come in and watch later.
Let's see. Stop video. Why is it? It does not want to pick up my webcam for some reason.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's showing on the screen. It's showing no, like a camera with a slash through it.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing right now too. Let me,
Yeah, take your time.
can do one more thing here. All right, I might do, I'm trying to see this. I'm trying to find, it doesn't even, I'm trying to find where to find my options to change my video. Let me do this. Let me try something. Share screen.
So I'm not sure what your screen shows, but down on the bottom of my screen, on the bottom left, I've got a camera and a microphone icon, and there's an arrow. There's like an open, to open up the menu, and then
Here we go. All right, now let's do this. There we go. All right, perfect.
And hold on, there I am. That worked. Look at that, right on time too. Is it 7:15?
Yep, please 7:14, 1 minute early.
All right, no, that's cool. How you doing, man?
Good. How you doing? I'm glad that we were finally able to get in a video together. I know we talked about making a video. The community's been really wanting us to make a video for a while. So, like I said, you said, this is kind of on the spot. So great to kind of bring this out. Of course, we have Ed's proposal that just came out. Yeah, thanks for having me on the channel.
And honestly, we're gonna have to do this again in a more like organized manner.
Yeah.
Because and I'll tell you why I wanted to do this so suddenly. We had Ed's proposal come out, and I read your comment on Agora. I also read your tweet. Right now, I think we all know, and if we don't know, we should know that TMM is a validator now. You've got your own validator node going.
Yep.
So you have somewhat of a vested interest in this proposal, right? When I read it, I had my initial feelings about it, but I'm not a validator, so maybe my perspective on it is a little different than yours. So it was great it's great to get together and chat with you about it, because I really want that other perspective, your perspective. So because I haven't really made up my mind whether or not I think this is a good thing.
Yeah. And I think that's a great question. And especially, I think it's great that it's an Agora. A lot of people are going to be discussing this on, what does this mean for the future of the Terra Luna Classic ecosystem? And especially since we just had the L1 task force team, that kind of just got established here. And now we kind of have the question about, who should be the canonical repository. But Edward Kim here, he comes and says that there should be no canonical repository, a proposal for it. And the reason why I think it's interesting is because if there's no canonical repository, he basically goes into, and what he says here is that the guardianship of what the code runs on the blockchain is in hands of the active validator set. So this gives more responsibility to a validator. And yeah, I just launched my validator on this new year, and I really want the validator to be a good representation of what the community is for. However, I think it's a great idea that all these different developers, they don't have one canonical repository to rely on. And kind of the downfalls that we did see that we saw with TFL, of course, with the depegging event, we had to rely on them as the canonical repository. And then we had the Terra Rebels that became the canonical repository. And then all of a sudden, they kind of had their fallout, and now we have to rely on that one. So I can see why bad players, or not bad players, but basically developer groups that maybe start to fall apart. And all of a sudden you have too many people that have too much control. But however, I think with the current voting power in the distribution, I think right now that just a few validators, they do have a lot of say in what future code could be implemented for Terra Luna Classic. And that kind of, to go into technicalities about that, that's what the Nagamoto coefficient, which we talk about, which is basically, how many validators hold more than 51% of the stake supply of LUNC. And that right now is only 3. So just a few validators have a strong voice and opinion over the Terra Luna Classic community. So yes, that these large voting power validators, they have supported the Terra Luna Classic community. All nodes is the top voting power. We know them. They've offered tons of support, and they're even working to help distribute the voting power by increasing their commissions to 10%. Remember, they came out with that public tweet to try to distribute the voting power, give it to some of the smaller delegators to basically decentralize the network. So I think it's a good idea. However, I think the other challenge that we do need to solve is how do we distribute the voting power among the validators if we're going to give them kind of the sole, not the sole power, but give them more responsibility to implement the future of the code.
Right. All right. So let me ask you this, and let's break it down for not only for me, but for some of the community.
Mm-hmm.
If this were to, and it's not up for vote yet, but once it goes up for vote, let's look into the future, right? This is up for vote, and let's say it passes.
Yeah.
What exactly at that point is the responsibility of a validator, of the whole validator set?
So if this does pass, then the whole responsibility of the validator is to basically listen to all these different developers, because now there's the responsibility of different developers that can come in. They need to try to gain and improve the relationship with the validators and improve the trust of validators for basically us to listen to what kind of codes they want to implement. But then plus, especially on the validator side, and the responsibility and the more responsibility that be put on, someone like me or someone like anybody else that is a validator in the chain, is that they have more of a responsibility to do more secondhand reviews and doing more audits on different types of code, working on make sure, is this a secure code that should be implemented? What are the pros and cons? And really not rushing, but really discussing. And I think with the validators, they really need to try to formulate a group with themselves, because now it's a discussion of what do the validators want to do to implement future code. So basically, it's just more responsibility. And with that responsibility becomes more second and third layer research, and bringing more research to the table regarding future code proposals. At that.
Yeah. All right. So on a personal level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that this is a good idea? Because as a validator, it puts some of this power back in, with the validators, or is it more of a, decentralization kind of thing? Like, what's the perspective?
I think it's a good idea if the voting power can be distributed among the validators more. Because basically what he's trying to do here is decentralize the developer group by basically saying any development group can come in to the community. And if they have codes that they want to be implemented, then it would be under the guardianship of the validators. But however, like I mentioned before, is that we do have lots of validators with ton of voting power right now. So just a few validators, even with proposals right now as we speak, just a few validators can make large swings in proposals. And so basically that would be the same idea, except for future code implementations, as far as my understanding goes so far.
Yeah. I mean,
so I want to say, I'm not, is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I think it's an interesting topic to definitely discuss. And I think the potential for it to be a great idea is there. However, my only concern with it is I don't want it to get into the wrong hands of people that are trying to become too power hungry, people that are trying to, take advantage of the community by, trying to benefit themselves. That's the only thing that I don't want to happen. So I do like this L1 task force team, and I think they have a really good future potential for the Terra Luna Classic community. So I wouldn't be angry if there was no canonical repository, or if the canonical repository went to this L1 task force group. I think giving them a chance to be the canonical repository would also be a great option. So I think there's two different ways of looking at this. It's basically, do you want to give most of the power for implementing code to one developer group, or do you want it to be among the validators to just decide? But the validators are pretty centralized right now. You kind of see what I'm saying?
Right. And that's actually, and we'll go through and unpack that in a second, but that actually is one of the options within that proposal that maybe people are glancing over, and I kind of think that they wouldn't glance over. But I want to back up for a second, okay?
Yeah.
When we're talking about, okay, now, and I've got it up on the screen, according to voting power, all nodes with 19.26%, Interstellar Lounge right behind them with 8.83%. And you can read through and see, the top 10 validators, put them all together, and they have a whole hell of a lot of voting power.
Yep.
We have made efforts to balance this out in the past. And it's still kind of the way it is. I mean, there are different ideas and different proposals to try to get that done. You're saying that you think this is a good idea, the no canonical repo, if we can balance this out. So should that be a necessary first step, working on balancing out this voting power before we go with this no canonical, whatever?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because, the question there then is, how do we not force the validators, but how do we work to decentralize the staking power and the voting power among the validators and the staking percentage among these individual validators? So there's been different talks about, hey, let's maybe make a minimum commission amount, maybe make the minimum commission to 5%. The whole belief behind this is because, there's some validators that have smaller commissions. So then it incentivizes people that want to earn more rewards to go on there. Or there's different ideas to, hey, what if we make the maximum voting power 10%? So more people can still delegate to all nodes. So you say all nodes. What if we took them and we had a voting power of 10%, but they still kept the amount that they were delegating, which is fine. And they still earn, the commission, which they earn, which is fine. But the amount of actual voting power they have is 10%. So that's another option that we could try to work on to help distribute the voting power among the community. It really depends, though, which validators are going to support that. Because like I said, if you're taking power away from the validators need to be in agreement to it. So I could see it going both ways, where if we said, hey, let's make the minimum commission, 5%, all the validators could say, no, we want to be able to, make it lower if we want to. So then it wouldn't go anywhere. Or if the validator, if we said maximum voting power, 10%, if people wanted, what if the validators wanted more voting power? No, I want the potential to go higher. The top validators are still the ones voting. So what it really entails down to is the community, because at the end of the day, the Terra Luna Classic community, you as an investor, you as a staker, you're choosing who you delegate your tokens to. So ultimately, the community is the one that is deciding the voting power of the validators, because they can choose to validate or delegate to anybody else. So I think getting the message about the importance of decentralizing the voting power is what's really important to the community, so the community can kind of understand that instead of just trying to maximize the rewards to the top, and, there is an inherent greed in everybody. I understand that. But instead of trying to maximize the rewards, kind of try to work at the distribution of the look at the distribution of the network to help decentralize it.
Right. So if we're not able to accomplish that, or if we're not able to accomplish that for a long while, is this no canonical repo proposal still a good idea?
I think in terms of development, I want to say yes. I like it. I would have to ask my community because, the validator, as a validator perspective, I'm really working to be there for the community. So I want to represent, what the community opinion is, and this just went live. So there's tons of discussion, tons of details, tons of specifications that everybody needs to hash through. People need to come together, get questions answered. So I don't know if I want to, give my final vote and say, yes or no, this isn't a good idea. But I think it has, like I said, a really good potential to be a good idea, because what this does allow is to prevent the previous things that happened. Like TFL, they were the canonical repository, which made sense. That was Terra Luna before it became Terra Luna Classic. Right. But the fact that we had to rely on them to implement code and pull requests and stuff like that, the fact that we had to rely on them was the issue. And then you had the Terra Rebels, they became the canonical repository. But then now that's where we're sitting at right now. We kind of have to rely on them, and the L1 task force. They're the ones that are working on this code, and they have to ask for permission. They can't just implement and run this code at their choosing. So that's where it's a good idea, because you can have then any development group that comes in, and if the validators support that development group, then they can implement the code and they can support basically that development group. So I do like it that there's a bunch of different development groups that come together. Now, the question is, will there be future development groups that come together? It really depends on what this L1 task force team is going to be doing. We do have some great details. Zardar, he's posted on GitHub all the things that they're doing. You can see with full transparency. So that way we're not bugging them on a daily basis, saying, hey, where are you with this update? What about this? What about this? You can actually go on GitHub. You can see what they're working on. You can see what's in review, what's ready to go. So I do think it has a potential to be a good idea from the perspective of what's happened already with the Terra Luna Classic chain.
I want to thank everybody who is in the chat right now. I don't know if you saw the notification on Twitter or if you just got a notification that I went live and so you jumped in, but I appreciate you guys jumping in. And I know that there's not a lot of you because this was very spontaneous. Me and TMM, we were like, hey, want to go live? Yeah, let's go live. We just kind of did it. So if you could hit the like button and share this, jump on Twitter and share and let people know that we're here. I don't think we're going to be here very, very long because, again, this was spontaneous and I don't know what TMM has to do, but I've got some things to run and do pretty soon.
I still got some time. But one of my good questions is, what do you think about this, Trev? You reading this, what is your initial reaction to it?
Yeah, I'm still forming my opinion, but I will give you some of my opinions. But just before I go to that, Mr. G says, what proposal? I'm gonna go to it in a second, and we're gonna talk about it. Kenneth says, is there a possibility to cap the voting power without capping the amount of delegations and or affecting any other operation?
Yep, and that's what we just had mentioned before when I was talking about. Yep. Like, say, for an example, with all nodes, I'm just going to use them because, they're the top validator right now at almost 20%.
Yep. We
could possibly, have their voting power just be 10%, but that wouldn't affect how many, Terra Luna Classic is delegated to them. And that wouldn't affect, they're still earning their commission, whatever they have set off the amount of Terra Luna Classic that's delegated to them. But the actual voting power that they have in terms of governance on proposals would be capped out at 10%. So if people want to still continue to support all nodes, that's an option, and they've been really supporting the Terra Luna Classic community. So, they've been doing very, helping us out a lot, and I appreciate all the support from all nodes. But that is an option. So no, it wouldn't affect the amount that is delegated to them, as far as my understanding goes. It would just affect their total voting power.
Okay, I got you. All right, I want to go over to this proposal, and it's not very long, and I think that Ed did an excellent job dumbing it down and simplifying it for everyone to pretty much be able to understand, whether you understand all this technical stuff or not. So I'd like to kind of read through some of it, and then I'll kind of give you my where I kind of am on it. And I'll tell you that I'm totally open to having my mind changed, but I'll give you my initial thoughts about it. Right. So for those of you who don't really go to Agora that often or even at all, Agora is where these proposals generally hit first, so that they can be discussed and they can be fine-tuned, and all the pros and cons can be brought out, because the people that actually write these proposals, sometimes there are things that they don't think of. And if you read through the responses and the comments in the end, they can really be enlightening, right? But just as far as this goes, so this is a proposal for no canonical repo for Terra Classic. And I'll read through, I'm not going to read through all of it, but I'll do it really fast. Terraform Labs were the original developers of the blockchain and used the GitHub repository, which was github.com Terra Money, as the canonical repository for the Luna blockchain. Now, canonical repository, basically, if you want to simplify it, it means they were in control of it, right?
Yep, exactly.
And if anybody wanted to do anything on it, you had to get their clearance before you could just implement things.
Yep,
okay?
100%.
So, all right, after the DPEG event in May, the Terra Classic repo was created, which was GitHub.com Terra Money Classic Core. And this was going to be for LUNC, right? But not actively maintained, because we know that TFL was moved, they forked off and they went over to Luna. They were concentrating on that, right? So thus any code changes by active developers in the ecosystem were subject to the approval of a centralized entity, which was TFL, whose focus had shifted to a different blockchain project. Until August 2022, the Terra Money repository was still the authoritative repository. So now we passed proposal 4940, which basically took that canonical repository that was in TFL's hands and put it in Terra Rebel's hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we still have a canonical repository, and that's kind of where we are right now still. It is still pretty much the Terra Rebels GitHub.com Terra Rebels Classic Core, right? We now have, as we all know, because we approved their funding, easily, right? We have this joint L1 development task force who is going to be making changes and doing things, but it's the same situation now. Just like Terra Rebels had to go to TFL until they got it in their hands. Now the L1 has to go kind of to Terra Rebels. So the whole idea is, if we make this non-canonical, right, then nobody has to go to anybody to kind of get permission, except for the validators, right? The validators at that point will kind of be in control. Am I saying that correctly so far?
Yeah, I would say basically what Ed is saying here is that, he's trying to prevent this situation from happening over and over and over again, where we had Terra Rebels, or we had TFL, excuse me, and then we had Terra Rebels. And now, like I had mentioned before, we now have this L1 task force team. They're doing the majority of the work to advance and try to evolve the Terra Luna Classic ecosystem. But however, they don't have access to the current canonical repository, and they are now subject to approval of a centralized entity. So the proposal is just trying to decentralize the perspective from the development group, and the fact that basically anybody can kind of come in here. So that way, in the situation with the L1 task forces, if this proposal was already passed, this was in place or in effect, L1 task force team, if they want to come out with some pull requests or they want to implement these changes, the validators, then they can just vote. They don't have to try to get permission. So that's the whole reason behind Ed's proposal here. And yeah, like you had asked the question, is that really what it kind of comes down to? Is that it does. And he says right here, at the last part of this paragraph under the motivation section, is that guardianship of what the code runs on the blockchain is solely in hands of the validator set. What he's saying is solely in hands of the validator set. So what I take from there is basically, yes, the active validator set are going to be the group making the decisions on which codes get implemented.
Okay. So thus some of my hesitation. All right.
Yeah. And that's exactly where, like I mentioned, what we talked about in the whole beginning of this live stream, was some of my hesitation is with the current skew in the voting power right now in the Nagamoto coefficient.
Well, right, and that's where your hesitation is. That's not even necessarily where my hesitation is. And I'll get to that in 2 seconds. But all right, so I'm skipping to the end. In summary, we believe that this proposal offers two major benefits to the community. First, it decentralizes the developer-validator relationship, right? Allowing any competent developer group to contribute freely to the blockchain. Second, it inherently requires a second level of review from the validator set and community body. On the other hand, this does require extra effort and scrutiny on the part of the developers, validators, community during the upgrade process. If you vote yes, you are communicating that you believe that there is no central canonical repository required for the Terra Classic blockchain. And you support the procedure of using code commit hashes, which they talked about earlier in this. You can go back and read it. Starting with the current code hash as the preferred method of upgrading the blockchain. If you say no, you are communicating that you would like the canonical repository to stay as the Terra Rebels Classic repository, or you would prefer that we propose to change the canonical repository instead. So there are kind of two options here. If you say no, you can leave it. You can say no because you think that it should stay in Terra Rebels' hands, but you could also say no that maybe you want it changed in another way, like maybe being in the hands of this L1 development team. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing, especially because this is the last part, by voting no here. What people might read right away saying, no, we want, keep the canonical repository for the Terra Rebels. I think a lot of people might miss that, or you would prefer that we propose to change the canonical repository instead, which most likely we would change it to the L1 task force team on where we are right now in Terra Luna Classic, because they're the ones doing the most amount of work. We just had, the proposal that passed regarding funding for them. So that would make the most sense if we voted no for getting rid of the canonical repository.
So here are some of my hesitations, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about first, it decentralizes the developer validator relationship. Well, this was my perspective. My perspective on the way that we, with a resounding voice, how we passed the proposal to fund this L1 development team. The way I took that was the community maybe finally acknowledging that 100% decentralization might not work all that well. And the reason that I say that is because, and I've put out videos about it, and I think other people have too, we get proposal after proposal after proposal, and the proposals argue with each other. And we implement something, and then we get a proposal to change that, right? And it's all over the damn place. And that's decentralization. That's the decentralization that you want, right? It just keeps changing and we keep spinning our wheels. So when we finally said, listen, we got Ed, we got Zaradar, we have this Superman or whatever, right? And we have this team, this L1 team, and we are going to fund them. I think it was everybody saying, okay, what we've been doing so far doesn't work. We are putting this in the hands of these people who we know and trust. Okay? So to now take it, and we've funded them, we're paying them to do this, right? To now take it out of their hands and put it in the hands of the validators who we might delegate to, but as a community, we did not vote all of those validators in. It's not every validator who's a validator that the community necessarily trusts, right? If I'm delegated to TMM, then obviously I'm saying that I trust this guy. I know, what he's going to do, and I think that he's going to vote the way I want him to vote, or whatever, right? But I may not necessarily feel that way about another validator. The community did not vote all the validators in. The community did vote in this L1 task force. So my initial thought is that I don't want to transfer it's just a transfer of power. It's either with the L1 task force or it's with the validators. I personally think right now that I would rather it be with the people that we all 90 point whatever %, right, elected, essentially.
And
That's
like I
how
said,
I feel about it.
yeah,
That's objection number one. Go ahead.
I see what, yeah, I want to say kind of spinning off that, like you said, with decentralization, in crypto, we hear decentralization here, here, and here, and here. But, it is still good to have, some type of central entity. And some people say, there's always going to be a central entity that's working in leadership, working to continue developing the chain, making the, important changes that the ecosystem needs. And that's kind of where the L1 task force came in, because before that, with the Terra rebels and everybody like that, we had fingers pointing at each other, saying this is wrong, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. Lots of fighting, drama. We all saw it all over the place. And like you said, Terra Luna Classic, sometimes it gets made fun of because it's like proposal after proposal. That's just a proposal chain. It's just so. With that, and going to the validators, or possibly, like you said, with your hesitation, bringing to the validators, or having the L1 task force team as the canonical repository, I see either voting yes or no in this future proposal could still be a win-win for the L1 task force team. Because the reason I say that is because the L1 task force team is still there. They're still a team. So if we gave the power to the validators, right now, we saw the validators, they supported the L1 task force team with nearly 100% approval proposal. So if we do decide to get rid of the canonical repository, I could see any good things that the L1 task force team is going to come out with. If all the validators already nearly support 100% what they're doing, they're probably going to support their code changes no matter what. And if people vote no for this, and basically saying, hey, or would you prefer that we propose the change to another canonical repository instead, we're probably going to pick the L1 task force. So as long as the validators, and I want to say as long as the Terra Luna Classic community stays unified in this point, and the L1 task force team, they show good advancement and proof of work, I think no matter what, we're going to show support. Is that support coming either from the changes they're making themselves from the validators, or is it coming from the validators? And it's just basically, like you said before, where are we putting the power? If that kind of, yeah. So either or, what I'm saying there is, by voting yes, the validators, I think right now are going to support whatever the L1 task force team, because it's kind of really our only direction that we have. So if it's to the power of the validators, or if it's the power to a development team, or if we make, L1 the canonical repository instead, then we're probably going to support them still. But the good thing about this proposal from Edward Kim basically is he's saying, what if the L1 task force team, what if for some reason it were to fall out? God forbid that happens. It just got, we have a lot of unity. We have some good people that have been supporting Terra Luna Classic, since the beginning of the depigging event. And, but what if, for God forbid, it falls out? Like the Terra Rebels, we thought that was the greatest group. We had great people in there, and it fell apart. So what I think he's trying to do is, for the greater good of the Terra Luna Classic community, is by saying, hey, another development group can then come in, and then they don't need to try to take the canonical repository.
Ed is actually in the chat, by the way.
Oh, Ed, how's it going? Thank you for giving us so many things to discuss about. Yeah. Talking about that.
Now, Ed, I'm assuming you can hear me. You may see in Discord that I sent you the link to jump on with me and TMM if you want to do that. And I don't think you have any objections if you wanted to jump in, do you? TMM?
Oh, sorry. I was reading the chat. I think you're talking to Ed. Sorry.
I'm saying if Ed decides that he wants to jump in, I would love to have to jump in. I don't, I'm sure you're all for it, right?
Yeah, but jump in. He would have way, a lot more expertise speaking on the subject, considering he wrote the proposal. So if he wants to jump in, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I sent you the link, and if it didn't go through for whatever reason, you want me to send you another one, I will certainly do that. Just let me know in the chat. But I think I would love to have you in. All right. In the meantime, while he's making up his mind on that, hesitation number 2, opening it up means, as you said, that another developer or developer group can kind of get together and jump in and start proposing things or trying to make some changes or whatever the situation is. And I would like to think that we would all lean toward this L1 task force, but I do also see that there are factions, maybe even within the validator set. Mm-hmm. People with agendas and people unfortunately, who would love the opportunity to try to seize some power. And so my concern is that we are moving in one direction, down one path being set by this task force that, again, we voted to fund overwhelmingly. That someone might come in with something that contradicts or maybe throws a hurdle in front of what it is they're trying to do. And again, there we go with that, wheel that we're going around and around and around. It opens it up for that. It opens us up, I feel, to backpedaling, going back to that situation that we were in that I talked about having a million different people with different ideas of what to do. I like this task force dictating to a degree a path. I think that we need one path that we all need to stick to. And as soon as you give people options, that's where all hell kind of breaks loose. So that would be my next hesitation.
Yep. And I see your hesitation there because, yeah, like you said, of course, there's good players in the community and there's bad players in the community that might, not be in the best interest of the community. It might be in the most best interest for themselves. And that's where your hesitation is with the validators. And that's kind of what motivated me to actually create, a validator myself and to really represent this community and give more voice back to the community to help decentralize the network. And that kind of goes back and forth of what we were talking about before, is that can we get the community, or how does the community help decentralize the network? So that way we don't have to have that worry about the validators having too much power, because like I said, in the end, we choose who we delegate our Terra Luna Classic to. So I think spreading the message about decentralizing the voting power is what's really important for the evolution of this chain. And like you had mentioned with the L1 task force, you really like what, they came together. And I think it's strong unity, like I said. And I think it's great to see that. And I think it's really important right now so we can have some focus on where we are building. I think the question is, do we give them the power to be the canonical repository? Like I said, I think people would support that. Or do we have the validators do it? And the validators would probably support that. But, if the validators decided to say, no, we want to go with something else, or, hey, there's this new development group that we're looking into, it gives them an option. But what if it wasn't in the best interest of the Terra Luna Classic community? So both those questions and both those answers go back to kind of the voting power and basically the validators. Because in the end, even if the L1 task force, if they were to submit proposals, if they were the canonical repository, those proposals still have to be submitted. So the validators still have to vote for it, if that makes sense. So, even if they are the canonical repository or not, the validators at the end of the day are still deciding to vote for it.
Right.
No matter what, because even if they have to put proposals out for the validators to vote for.
Right.
So then does it really matter? Does it really matter if there's a canonical repository then? If at the end of the day, no matter what, the validators are the one that are voting for it?
Yeah, right. So which in case, I don't know. I'm so comfortable with this team, and I've pushed for a long time and prayed, and I'm not a praying guy, but I've prayed a long time for these two guys to come together and kind of steer this ship.
And I think it's the best opportunity, that we have right now, and I think it's a good direction for the future.
And now that we have them, I don't like any proposal that potentially opens it up for someone else to come in and throw a wrench in the works. I'm just not feeling comfortable about it. Ed can't jump in right now because he's giving his child a bath. Hey, listen, you're gonna be dad, and what is it? 3-4 kids now and a newborn, right? So you go ahead with daddy duties, Ed, but I appreciate you being in the chat. And, whenever you want to come on and chat with either one of us, I'm sure, all you got to do is reach out.
So, I guess that's my main question to you. And, you may not have the answer for it, is where do you think the power is best fit? Do you think the power is best fit in the hands of the validator or of a development? It doesn't just have to be the L1 task force team, but a development team with the canonical repository.
I like the I like the double layer of that. Okay. And if there's, having the validators as that second layer of security and that second layer of approval, right? I'm fine with. Okay. That's what they're there for. Right? That's beautiful. Right. I agree with you that we should try to level things out. I think that would make it even better.
Yeah.
But that first layer, I right now I'm comfortable with that first layer being this L1 task force. I think before,
and the whole community is too, because remember the last vote got like 100% approval.
Right. So why are we? Listen. Before this proposal came out, I guarantee the majority of the community didn't even know that was an issue. We already assumed that it was these guys and the validators. That's what we assumed. So.
But I think the reason Ed came out with this, and I mean, he's in the chat, he's probably listening. So he can tell us why he, maybe speak out on why he came out with it. But the reason why he probably came out with this is to prevent the things that did happen with TFL and the Terra Rebels, basically saying, because now they're doing this work and they have to rely on approval from the people with the canonical repository. So I see Ed's concern for it, because look at the situation that they're in right now, is that they're doing all this work and they need approval for it. So we do support this L1 task force team and we support what they're developing, but they don't have the canonical repository. So that's where the benefit of removing it would be in place, or voting no. And then we'd have a proposal to vote the L1 task force team to be the canonical repository.
Ed says, where is it? Gaining the validator community trust is no easy feat.
Yep. Now I would agree with that too. And also I'll let you speak. Don't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's fine. I agree too. It is no easy feat, but you've accomplished it, right? He and Zaradar have accomplished it. So I'm hesitant about anything that possibly moves us backwards, and opening it up for other people to come in and kind of have control of things, or not control of things, but to make changes and take us down possibly a different path. I'm just not comfortable with it. So here's hesitation number 3, right? When I interviewed Zaradar, we talked about this $150,000 for this 3 months, right?
Yep.
And we also talked about the next allotment, ain't going to be 150,000. They want to actively move us toward what this work is actually worth. And he said that this was a discount that they were giving the community, right?
Yep.
So we have some groups out there being kind of loud, talking about how they can do this work for $1.
Yep. And you're going to get that. You're going to get different groups that are going to come in here and say, well, we'll do it for cheaper.
Right.
But I think the proof of work, or the proof is in the pudding there. And, what work have they done to prove themselves that they can do it for cheaper?
You're right. You're right. It should absolutely be that. I agree with you. However, I also clearly see the greed of people as well. Give them an opportunity to burn their own coins, and they're not going to do it. They'll let somebody else do it. So there's that greed factor, and I'm concerned about these guys coming back to us in May or the end of March or whatever for an additional funding for another 3 months, and they've accomplished all kind of stuff, right? The proof of work is absolutely there. Yep. But we've opened this up, so now other teams can come in, and you've got some other team that comes in and says, oh, we'll do it for half that, or we'll do it for a quarter of that. Yep. And the greed of the community, who doesn't really pay attention, I'm sorry, I wish they paid attention more, who doesn't really pay attention, the greed comes in and says, oh, these guys will do what you guys are doing for blah, 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 blah. So, and then it puts us into that
cycle. Yeah, you're basically saying, what if the L1 task force comes in and says that, hey, for the next quarter, we want $250,000, or we want $500,000 now. And then you got some team that says, hey, we'll do it for 1/5 of that price.
Right.
And all the validators say basically, oh, that sounds great. Let's spend way less and get the same things done. So that's the hesitation that you're speaking on right there.
Normally I'm for competition, right?
Yeah.
When a McDonald's opens up on this corner, I want to see Burger King right across the street, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, I want this thing moving forward. I'm sick to death of it moving in circles.
Yep.
And I don't see it continuing to move forward if we keep coming in with other options. I think we have this team. I think we go forward with this team, and I let them guide us. That's my opinion on it.
Yep.
My opinion right now is give them the canonical repository. And again, I might change somebody might say something that I didn't think of, and I might change my mind next week. But how I'm feeling about it right now, I trust these guys, and that's where I want the power.
Yep. And I think a lot of the Terra Luna Classic community would agree with you. I agree with you. Even myself as a validator right now, I agree with you, is that, we're really putting a lot of trust and in this L1 task force team. And Edward Kim, even he just said right here, he said, competition is good for the ecosystem. That's completely true. Competition is really good because it incentivizes everybody to be better. How can I be better? How can I be more creative to, make the ecosystem stronger and to bring new things to the ecosystem? But where I kind of lead with that is, how do we prevent the bad players from taking over? How do you prevent, a different development team coming in, then all of a sudden they ruin it and then things go backwards and it's, oh, we want the old team. And like you said, running in circles. So how do we prevent that? And where you are right now is saying, should we let them have the canonical repository? I think it's a good discussion. And like I said, this proposal just came out. So we're probably going to find out a lot of information tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of other opinions. We're probably going to have a lot of validators that state their opinion. But where I kind of stand right now, and I think this agrees with the community because I'm trying to represent the community in the best fashion. That's kind of what I'm here for, is that everybody's in unity for the L1 task force team. So is that with them having the canonical repository, or if not having the canonical repository? I don't think it really matters. I think right now we're supporting them, and the validators are supporting that. And like I said, we saw that proof with the last proposal that passed, that mostly everybody voted them in for the community spend and to kind of become the new team.
Yeah, I'm just feeling maybe, listen, I get it, right? I get the competition thing, Ed, I really do. And I agree with you on that. But competition, if everyone is moving toward the same goal, maybe I can do it for cheaper, or maybe I can do it better if we're leaving for one goal. But when you have competition, and it's taking us off in different directions, I don't think that's good for the ecosystem. It's certainly not good for the community, and it ain't good for my bag, right? Is really what it comes down to. So maybe, in my opinion, I don't expect anybody to agree with it just because I said it, right? This is just my viewpoint. Maybe this kind of proposal would be good 6 months or a year from now. Let's open it up. But I would like to see this team right now not be distracted, not be interrupted in any way. I would like to, I really don't feel like you've even gotten, your feet off the, we haven't really.
The reason this is coming out now, though, is because they need approval because they don't have the canonical repository.
Yeah, I get it. I get
what I mean? So it does, in effect, the way I see it is it does need to come out now, either if we vote a yes or if we vote no to give them the canonical repository, because they need the ability to make changes without having to go or having approval through a different type of team.
So, if everybody voted no on this because their opinion is that we should, maybe that should have been a whole other proposal, right? Either yes or no on the, either leaving it in Terra Rebels' hands or not. But then a whole nother proposal, I guess, which is going to be, if everybody votes no, then there's going to have to be another proposal that says, okay, do you want us to have it? Right?
Oh yeah. Yep. And that's exactly how it would go for. So right now, I think the community, like I said, this is a pretty good win-win situation. If we want to stay unified and put trust in the L1 task force team, you have no canonical repository if people vote yes. And the validators are likely going to support the L1 task force team because they're the only ones that are working to taking us in the right direction right now, kind of the main leadership team. Or if you vote no, the Canonical repository is likely going to go to the L1 task force team as long as the validators still support it, and the L1 task force team, they're doing the work that they said that they were going to be doing. It's going to come with proof, with proof of work. And with the more proof of work, like how we talked about competition and stuff, if this did vote yes, and there was no Canonical repository, say the L1 task force teams, they do all these great things and they do all this great work and the community loves them, but now you have someone else that says, hey, we'll do it for half the price. The community might get to the point where they may not want to take that risk. They'll say, no, I think we'd rather spend the additional money because these guys have already shown all the work that they've done. They've already made these advancements. We don't want to take the risk to go with some new team that is at a cheaper price because, higher quality does come at a higher price.
I would love to think that that's the case, but there's no way to guarantee that. I've seen people go the way of greed too many times, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah.
It does.
So I think leaving at that, I think it's a good situation. And I think it's an important proposal because like I said, right now, like you had said, what if we did this in 6 months? Well, anything the L1 task force team is doing, they need approval right now at the current moment.
Right. Well, it's not up for vote yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as it being, I don't know. As far as the option being available to make it non-canonical, in my opinion, maybe we don't need to vote on that right now. Maybe we need to vote. Do we want to leave it with Terra Rebels or do we want to give it to the L1? That's my opinion. But I get that people see it another way.
So you could have a proposal that comes out like, that, and this is why the Agora discussions are posted. So that way we can have this live stream. And the fact that what we're doing right now is the whole reason for the Agora proposals is to discuss this, give our opinions on it. You could have a separate proposal saying, hey, should we change the Canonical repository to the L1 task force team? And then down the line, you could have a proposal like this that says, let's get rid of the Canonical repository in total. But I think what Ed is doing here, he's just trying to promote decentralization. And basically, I don't think, he wants to be open and welcome different development teams that can come in with good incentives and to have an option to implement changes that are beneficial for the Terra Luna Classic community. So, I can't place myself in his brain. We're going to need his brain to come out and say why he decided to have these two options in this Agora post. But that's kind of what I'm seeing. But yeah, like you said, with your hesitation, and if the community has a lot of hesitation, you could have a proposal that says, let's just not have the Terra Classic Rebels or the Terra Rebels as the Classic repository, and let's change it to the L1 repository for the Canonical repository for right now. Let's see what they do. And if they, if they're good, we can keep it. If things change, then we could have a proposal that says for no Canonical repository.
I think that's what I would like to see. It really is. All right. So let's see. B-Train 88 says, I also see good reasoning on both sides. So since we got these guys for 3 months, any possible way, it makes sense. I think it makes sense to have these guys in charge for 3 months and then see how that plays out. And I think that's
exactly what
talking
just
about.
What we said. Like, what if we had a proposal that said, hey, make the L1 task force team the Canonical repository right now. Like you said, we've already paid them for 3 months. Let's see what they do in 3 months. And then we could have the options of the option of possibly removing the Canonical repository. That's it's a good idea. And I think the community would support that. Like I said, I think anything that the L1 task force team does right now, if they're working and showing development and showing proof of work, I think we're going to support.
Yeah. I think me and you just figured it out. So Kenneth Valera says, in short term, we must put our trust in the L1 task force. Let's get the Canonical repository over to L1, especially if it will make their work easier. Grizzly says, I agree with DJ Trev. Yeah, you're awesome, Grizzly. I appreciate that. Crypto Jones, we can't expect to have only one team forever if we want this to be big. Again, there are a lot of different perspectives, and who's to say which one's right, which one's wrong? But I see that point. I definitely see that point. All right, so I don't know. I appreciate you giving me your side of it and your perspective on it, because you absolutely told me some things that I maybe didn't really quite understand perfectly, right? So I appreciate that. Which is what you do in all of your videos. Every time I watch one, I learn something. So I really appreciate you. And let me tell you, so if anybody doesn't know, TMM has his own validator node now. And this guy, along with maybe a handful of others, really genuinely tries to put out honest and real information. It's community centric, it's community first, right? And you should, subscribe to his YouTube channel, subscribe to him on Twitter, pay attention to what he says, because his opinions are based on what he thinks is best for the community, and we need a lot more of that. Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, what's up?
Do you have some sort of background in either theater or broadcasting or something like that?
That's one of the main questions I get is, hey, what's going on with the bed in the background? Sometimes it's not even made, sometimes it's messy.
Well, yeah, I think I left a message in your
we have that.
I was like, make your bed.
Yep. No, but yeah, we're trying to improve the studio. Hopefully I can get into a studio, create a studio that'd be hopefully, coming in the near future. I'm really busy, unfortunately, at the moment. So I only have so much time in the day to focus on crypto, focus on Terra Luna Classic, but I love delegating all my free time to it. So yes, we're working on making the background more presentable.
But that wasn't my question, though.
Yes.
That wasn't. I said, do you have a background in broadcasting or theater or something like that?
I'd have to check if OBS, because I do most of my video recording through OBS. So I'd have to check if OBS Studio, if they have a background, or if
no, you're not getting me. You personally.
Oh, like physical, a physical?
No, have you ever been in broadcasting before?
Oh, I thought you meant like a back.
I'm like, what the hell's he talking about? I'm telling people how great he is, and he's like off on a tangent somewhere.
I've not been in broadcasting at all.
The reason I asked, right, is because the way you enunciate, there are no ums, there are no ands, there are no and I listen to you do your videos, and I get jealous of that, because the reason that my videos are so long is because they're full of ums and ands and whatever, right? I don't edit them, and I do have a background in theater, but I still don't enunciate and speak as clearly as you do, and I envy it. I think it's a great thing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate, and of course, I appreciate all the kind words that you said, and of course, appreciate all the shout outs that you gave and stuff. And you've been really there for the Terra Luna Classic community. I've been watching you, from the beginning and stuff, and so it's always been great to hear what you have to say. And yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, with the validator that we launched, the whole motive behind that was to really be a representation for the community. And that's really been something that I've been trying to do ever since the depigging event, is really just being a voice for the community and trying to bring more power back to the community. And how do we do that in terms of, governance, is by spreading out the voting power, which is the whole discussion that we talked about this whole live stream is, if we gave the power to the validators, I think we need to distribute the voting power. So that way, not just a few validators can have basically control over all the code that would be implemented for Terra Luna Classic if we were to get rid of the canonical repository.
Right. So everybody go to Agora and read this proposal. It's all over Twitter, the link. I'm going to try to put the link in the description of this video as well. Go and read it. Read through the comment sections, read through the pros, the cons, and get your feelings together on it, because as always, we want you to vote your conscience, not vote according to anything that I said or that TMM said or even that Ed said. Form your own opinions, make up your own minds. And when this comes up for vote, if it comes up in the, whether it is just the way it is now, or if it changes a little bit, whatever, I want you to be educated on what it is that you're voting for. I think TMM would agree with that.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with that. Yep. At the end of the day, it's important that you go through your own decision. People are going to try to persuade you to do certain things. People are going to try to influence you to do certain things, or say, this is going to happen, we're going to do all this. And at the end of the day, always do your own research. And just like any Terra Luna Classic holder, just like me and you, we're trying to figure all this out together. This is a challenge that hasn't really been done in crypto before, is revitalizing a chain that completely depegged and everybody thought it was dead. And look at the community that's been created around it. So this is a challenge, and it's an experimental challenge. Can we do it? And I think the opportunity is there. So how do we do it? And at the end of the day, that really comes to making your own decisions and making sure you vote with your true heart, if you are staking your tokens, because at the end of the day, it's your tokens and it's your voice. So
what's your forecast for Terra Classic for 2023?
For 2023, I think lots of building. That's my hopeful forecast for Terra Luna Classic, is lots of building. Especially, during a bear market like this, I think building is important. And for a bull market, it's like, oh, we have all these different options, these different utility options. You can do this with Terra Luna Classic and things like that. So utility usually, brings intrinsic value if you can utilize it, if you have different examples on how you can utilize it. And especially with the IBC channels and things like that, how do we increase interoperability in the crypto industry? And the fact that Terra Luna Classic is part of the Cosmos ecosystem and is the highest traded token right now in the Cosmos ecosystem, I think says something. So, so that's kind of the challenge that we're facing. And yeah, so that's what I think, building and utility. And people are saying, lots of burning. I think it's going to be great for the year. I think, yes. How do we find that balance between burning, building, and of course, funding the developers, so that way they're incentivized to bring great things, to bring burning and utility in the first place.
Got it. All right. I appreciate that. All righty, sir. Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, it's great. I know it's finally been the whole community. They've been wanting us to get on chat. We've been talking about getting on a live stream together. Great to see. It's great just to talk and just kind of sit back and, discuss these things. I think it's important, and it's great to bring it on your channel. And I'm always open to come back and talk about future things.
Do we need to come up with a cool name?
Or like a duo name? I don't know.
We'll think
about some
that
people. I saw one on Twitter saying Batman and Robin. So
no, cut it out. All righty, sir. I'm going to let you go. Again, thank you very much. And we're going to have to do this again. Next time we'll be on your channel. And we also talked about, I think, doing some Twitter spaces and such.
Yeah, I'd be open to, because I think Twitter spaces, I love Twitter spaces. I just kind of started utilizing Twitter. And so if people want to hear more frequent updates, like Trev said, I'm at TMM Cryptos on Twitter. Twitter Spaces is cool because anybody has the opportunity to pop up, give a question. You can have all these whole new discussions that get formulated off of that. So it's a great open discussion platform. That's what I love about Twitter. So I think, it'd be great to do some future Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So go, not financial advice. We are not financial advisors, but go check out the Millennial Market Validator as well, and show your boy some love. Do you have auto staking?
So I dropped a hint in yesterday's video. I said, we're having something coming in the future, and it starts with the word auto. So,
okay. All right, I'll leave it
so yes, we are working on bringing auto compounding to the validator as an intrinsic, as a utility for the validator. And we have other things we're going to be supporting. I created a whole fundamental principles document, things that, because these different validators are popping up. They're saying, oh, we're going to do all these things. So I have a fundamentals principles document, laid out the goals for 2023 that I wanted to do to best accurate, represent the community, how we're going to be voting, what day we're going to be voting on, the goals that we have for 2023, and how we're going to accomplish those goals. So make sure you guys go check that out if you are considering delegating with me, so that way you guys can get kind of an idea of the purpose behind the validator.
Yeah, awesome. That's beautiful. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to the Millennial Market. And thank you to Mr. Ed Kim for jumping in. And I will talk to you all again soon. All right. Have yourself a good night.